WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Greetings and welcome back, everyone. It's time for yet another WoW Killer. I'm Garrett, joined as always by Taliesin, and today we're going to be talking Pathfinder. We're going to be talking flying, but first, Taliesin, how you doing, man? You playing a lot of alpha? You playing a lot of live? Doing a lot of both?
I'm doing all of the above. Hello, Garrett. It's nice to be here. Yes, WoW is here. I'm playing a lot of alpha is mostly what I'm doing. My gold making in live has kind of taken a bit of a backseat, unfortunately, because if I am in live, I pugged a Mythic Plus last night for the first time, all expansion. Because usually, obviously, I do it in my guild group or with friends or on stream or something like that. And yesterday was literally the first time in the entire expansion that I pugged a Mythic Plus, because it was Tuesday night. And Wednesday is reset for us EU folks, you see. So you got to get your Mythic Plus in to get your chest today. Otherwise, I'd have had nothing to open on my main, Garrett. And I joined a plus 14, which wasn't ideal. Shrine of Storms, which was not ideal.
Ooh,
and it wasn't as terrible as you might have thought, but it was pretty terrible. We didn't quite time it. We pretty much killed it by 30 seconds, which was a shame because lots of people didn't know how to deal with the mind control boss just before the final boss. So there we go. That was fun. Wasn't my fault, so I didn't care.
Nice. I got to that point.
Which is pretty much the motto of my entire life. Was it my fault? No. Then I don't care.
I reached that point. I was really excited, Tally, because since we've last met, Revendreth has hit the Alpha PTR.
Yes.
And I got over there and was like, oh, this is the zone. This is the zone I'm so excited for. I'm also really excited for Maldraxxus. Is that the Necrolord area?
Of course you are, you new metal loving dude.
Yes. Oh, dude, it's so good. It's so good. Actually, after our...
Do you know, what I'm excited about of Maldraxxus is all of, the characters that we're going to meet there. So Lady Vaj is there. She's in Maldraxxus. And I think Drakkar is in Maldraxxus as well. And also Fred Durst. So
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, he did it all for the Nookie. He did it all. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. But Revendreth more than anything else, super stoked for it. You know me, totally emo boy at heart. Love the vampires. Love all that stuff. Couldn't be more excited for it. I got maybe 5 quests deep and went, this is too good. I have to stop. I'm spoiling this for myself.
Yeah, seriously though, and because obviously streaming and stuff like that, and I know everyone on Twitch is streaming alpha right now, but it's a really fun thing to stream, and also just because of the weekly reset and because of the type of videos that I make, I do feel kind of obligated to play through it all, which is fun, super fun, and luckily I think that Shadowlands is still far away enough that if I play through all of the zones when they go on the alpha now, they'll be long ago in the past. When Shadowlands actually comes out, that they will still be fresh for me when I actually play through them properly.
They'll also be the crappiest they possibly could be, and they're going to be really well polished and sorted by the time you. I'll be like, wow, this is so much more than I remember, so much better than I remember. And none of the zones have all their quests in them yet. Interestingly, I know Bastion certainly doesn't. You can only get to chapter 5 of Bastion before you have to go to Oribos to continue, and of course you can't go to Oribos yet. So. I
think a lot of side quests and stuff aren't in there either. It's mostly main quests that are in there at the moment.
And
Revendreth is stunning.
I've been skipping the side quests too because of the new quest sorting, because it tells you what's a main quest and what's a side quest. I'm like, well, what's the point?
It's great, isn't it?
I don't give a crap about this XP.
And an unexpected, kind of really nice thing about that for people who don't know on the alpha, and we'll start talking about the main topic in a minute, I promise. But for those who don't know, in the alpha, one of the things that's changing in Shadowlands is that the exclamation mark, the quest giver mark above quest givers' heads, is different when the quest they're giving is a main story quest that you need to complete to progress. So if it's just a normal exclamation mark, it's it'll give you experience and rewards as you'd expect, but it's not needed for progression through the storyline of the zone. And if it is for progression, then it has a little shield icon around it, which is quite attractive and really cool. And what that does is, obviously, it lets you streamline your progress through a zone and come back and do like side quests later, which I think is really exciting. But more importantly, it actually adds like a new level of RP to it. So there's a moment in, and this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a moment in Revendreth where you are given a quest to do something which, you know, is not a very pleasant thing to do. Okay. And as I was doing this quest, I was like, I'm not sure I really want to do this quest. I'm not sure I'm doing much good in the world here. I think I'm actually doing bad in the world by doing this quest. We've all had that feeling when we've been playing WoW, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
But you do the quest because you have to. But I knew that I didn't have to do the quest because it didn't have a shield around it. And it actually gave my character the freedom to go, no, I'm not going to do this, actually. I don't want to do this. This is bad, and I'm not going to do it. And whereas before you just mindlessly complete every quest in front of you, knowing that this particular one wasn't part of like the story progression, gave you the freedom to go, no, actually, I won't do that. And kind of make a choice that you haven't really had in WoW before, which I found really interesting. Like adds a level of RP to it.
Yeah, while also like attached very directly to a cold piece of UI. Right? Like,
yeah, exactly. But it's like it's maybe an unexpected kind of nice little kind of byproduct of that, which is
anything that gives me even the inkling of more role play in my World of Warcraft is a good thing in my mind.
Definitely, and it is at the end of the day more agency, which is one of the buzzwords of the expansion. So I'm completely down with that.
Hashtag agency.
Someone says, will you play through it all again when beta releases? No. This is the thing. I'm playing through this stuff once. I'm getting the footage I need. I'm getting like the story that I need. I'm getting the insights into the leveling that I need. And I have no intention to go back. I don't even have intention to go back and finish the bits that I haven't finished in the storylines that have already there but uncompleted. Because I know I can see what's going to happen. And I don't need to play through it. I can wait until the expansion goes live.
Yeah, I'm rather kind of enjoying it this time around because, you know, now I am actually permanently on multiple WoW programs. And I'm learning ways to do it, or like ways to make peace with it, because now I'm more interested in system testing than I am, you know, grinding or seeing the story. And so I'm really thankful that you can just go talk to a enlarged Tauren to just like teleport to Torghast. Like that's great, because it's like, well, I just want to test this. So I really dig that. And obviously, because you can just make as many level 50s and level 57s as you want, you can test classes to your blue in the face if you really want to. So
it's in a pretty good place right now, the alpha. And it's an exciting phase where I feel like it's kind of like a band's first album at the moment. This is what the first couple of like weeks and maybe month of alpha is like. You've got all that stuff that the team have been making since the beginning, you know.
Oh yeah, the fans first. Like, I love thinking of it as like a little indie record. You know, they're pressing their own 45s in a garage.
Well, no, more that, you know, when you it's always said that, you know, the reason a second album is difficult is because the first album you've had years to write those songs and get them together and put them out, and then the second album you've only had like a much shorter amount of time to write those songs, and there's like less quality control that goes on as a result, and sort of less time for inspiration and things like that. So we're getting stuff that has been kind of, you know, finished or near finished and ready for alpha probably since long before the alpha was up. So, and it's all in a great state, you know. Like people always ask me, like, is Shadowlands going to be good based on what you've seen on the alpha? And it's kind of impossible to tell, because obviously, you know, I'm an easy mark. I'm having fun because of course I am. I'm getting new quests in new zones in a game that I love, and I've got like class changes to play with, but you know, also I've been in alphas before, and I've played WoW for a number of years, and yeah, everything that you would want to be in place kind of is in place at the moment. The zones are beautiful and interesting, and the questing is of the level that you'd expect. Clearly there's going to be cinematics and cutscenes everywhere, which is always a joy. The classes are generally in a pretty good shape. There's one or two sort of outliers at the moment, but generally, you know, they're in a pretty good state. Torghast is super fun, as we were discussing in a previous episode. You know, obviously a lot is going to have to do with how they implement that. The dungeons so far have been interesting. The only thing that can really go wrong right now is covenants and covenant abilities. And that's the biggie. That's the biggie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, and access
pretty cool.
Access to Torghast, which we're still unsure of, but if
Yeah,
you want to hear about that,
absolutely.
we've got a 2-hour episode from last week for you.
But we know that at a base level, at least that is fun. Like they don't have to try and find a way to make that fun. No. They have to try and find a way not to ruin that fun that is already there.
It's all about just balancing the access to it. And I would think that's fixing that in my mind should be a lot easier than making it fun if it wasn't. So
you'd hope so, wouldn't you?
They cleared that.
And speaking of things that aren't fun,
thank you.
We've already had, and no, listen, this is a really good segue, okay? Because one of the things that is obviously really enjoyable about Shadowlands, which is one of the things I find enjoyable about any new expansion, is I know a lot of people disagree with me on a number of these points. One of the things I always enjoy is feeling unpowerful, okay? When I go in to a new zone and I go in off the back of the final patch of the last expansion. So my character is as overgeared as it's possible to be. And they have optimum stats because they've had a year pretty much of that final patch usually to, farm their best and get the best possible gear. And that's going to be even more so when we go into Shadowlands when I'm going to have if I keep on doing visions and stuff, I'm going to have a gem slot in every single piece of gear. And I'm going to have corruption up the wazoo. And Azerite armor effects, coming out my eyes. And it'll be nice. It has been nice on Shadowlands to feel relatively unpowerful again. I know loads of people hate that and they list it as one of the bad things about a new expansion, but I always look forward to that. And I always look forward to building up my character again. I think that's really cool. And one of the other things that I always find super fun about exploring these new environments in new expansions is that I have to do it on foot. Because Shadowlands, like any new expansion in recent years, does not have flying enabled when you first get there. It's going to be something that happens later. And when I personally, with my mouth, asked Ian Hazakostis in the WoW Q&A, because I don't know if you know this, Garrett, but I did host the WoW Q&A. You probably didn't know that. But
no,
you
never mentioned
it.
You never mentioned it. And I definitely didn't sit there for the runtime of the panel and watch you host it.
Yeah, and this wasn't one of the questions that any of the people lining up to ask were going to ask. Because I obviously had a list of the questions that they were going to ask. And I'd seen them beforehand. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm not going to let this question be asked. So I jumped in and I asked Ian Hazakostis to his face, what's going on with flying in Shadowlands? How will it work? How will it unlock? And he said it will follow the same structure as the last couple of expansions, which means, Garrett, Pathfinder. And Pathfinder is our topic of the day.
Yay.
What's Pathfinder, Garrett?
It is a sore spot for me. Pathfinder is how we unlock flying, Taliesin, because it's clearly the correct option. Clearly, locking flying behind a grindy-ass achievement, which is something that we came up with at the 11th hour during Warlords of Draenor, considered to be one of the greatest expansions in the history of World of Warcraft, is the correct way to handle flying, and we will blindly forge ahead with this being the only answer to an MMO that clearly didn't address flying in much better ways in previous expansions.
So before this episode turns into Garrett's Book of Grudges, let's have a quick recap on the history of flying in World of Warcraft. Now, Garrett, I happen to know, and again, this is private information, which I'm sure not many people know apart from me, but we work together, so I have that kind of insight into you. I happen to know that you played vanilla World of Warcraft.
Yes.
It's something that you like to keep a secret, and you don't like talking about it, but you did play vanilla. And can you explain to me when flying was first introduced into the game, please, Garrett?
It was in Burning Crusade.
And so was that introduced into Outland? Did you get flying in the old world then as well?
No, Taliesin.
So it was specific to the new zone, Outland, in the Burning Crusade. And how did one acquire flying in the Burning Crusade, Garrett?
Loads,
if that is your real name.
Loads and loads of gold.
Okay. That was it.
Yes.
But you had to be max level as well, right?
You did have to be max level. It cost a lot of gold. I actually don't remember what the first rank costed. The first rank wasn't bad, but you flew so slow. It was insane.
I remember it from every time I boost a toon now. Every time I pay every time I pay the company's money to boost a toon now, and they've got slow flying, and I'm like, boo! And that's nowhere near as slow as it would have been in Burning Crusade.
No, initially. It was 60% originally, and now the slow flying was 100%. So at least it moves as fast as the fastest ground mount.
That's always been my worrying about flying in real life. Okay, when people ask you what your superpower is going to be, if it's like, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And loads of people say flying, right? But that's always been my worry. I was always like, well, what if, right? You could fly in real life, but you could only fly as fast as you could walk. So what if like your superpower was you could fly and you're like, cool, I'm going to fly to the top of that building. But then you could only fly as fast as you could walk. So for like
lame safety reasons that...
Well, I just like, why wouldn't you only be able to fly as fast as you could walk? It never made sense to me that
I mean, it would still be extremely convenient.
It would still be very and awesome. Flying is awesome, but it wouldn't be like the cool, like soaring over the rooftops thing that we imagine.
Yeah. So again, I cannot remember what the like 60% flying cost, but I do remember that the flying you actually wanted, which was like fast flying, was a whopping 5,000 gold, which back in the day in Burning Crusade, that was a lot of gold.
Sure. So how long did it take you to get flying in Burning Crusade?
And not too long, because I took a loan out from a friend.
Oh no!
Yeah. I had grinded up 2,000 gold, and a friend of mine was just like rolling in auction house money. It was just like, here's 3,000, pay me back. It was like straight up Animal Crossing, no interest, pay it back as you feel,
And you paid it back in acorns, right?
Yeah. Well, bells, I guess, or miles. No, I eventually did pay it back with gold, but no, I did slum it with the 60% flying speed for a while I grinded up that 2K, and then just one day was doing dungeons with a friend, and they were like, how far are you? And I was like, 3K. They're like, just take this, pay me back, don't worry about it.
I'm genuinely interested in like the details of this. Like how long would you say it took you from getting to max level to get flying?
What was that? My memory is really poor on this, to be frank. It felt like it took a long time, but I didn't play WoW correctly in my early days, Taliesin. Okay, I didn't have professions. Like I didn't like them. I didn't like going back and like picking herbs or mining nodes or anything of that nature. Eventually, I did go back. And that's how I started to make my gold. Eventually I actually caught my mining up, but it took me a while to get there. So it took me longer than it would have taken, I think, your average World of Warcraft player at the time that had actually had their professions ready to go at the beginning of Burning Crusade and could have actually started generating revenue.
Well, I mean, you say that, Garrett, but I wouldn't say your average World of Warcraft player had a 3,000 gold sugar daddy who could just like, give you an interest-free loan.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like getting even my first rank. I don't remember what it costed, but I didn't have the gold. It's not like I hit 70 and immediately went and bought my flying mount. I still had to grind for it. I spent quite a bit of time on the ground, and I spent quite a bit of time flying very slowly over the ground. So had I been more prepared, had all of the knowledge that I have now, I would have gotten there much quicker. But I really.
And how did you feel when you first got flying in WoW? Because like I imagine it was something which was like, I remember when I got my first flying mount, and it was not in Burning Crusade, and it was like super exciting. It felt like an incredible new world had been unlocked for me.
Oh yeah.
It was the very first time.
It was like the coolest shit that I had experienced in the game up until that point. Like it was just like, oh my god, I can go wherever. Like just the novelty to be able to like stand on top of some stupid tower that didn't have a way to walk up to the top of the tower was really rad. On top of the convenience of being able to go wherever you want and not have to worry about stopping for every mob along the way that's aggroing you or that kind of thing. Like even when it's super slow, the utility that it gave you was really cool. And also because, at least for me, it took me a while to unlock it, so it felt like it was fine. It felt like by the time I was able to fly over a mob. It's like, well, I had to slum through all those mobs on foot enough times already that it kind of felt like it was a natural progression of, yeah, okay, I think the what I am trivializing felt like it was okay to be trivialized by this point. So it was really exciting.
Moving to Wrath of the Lich King, your favorite expansion, and how did flying work there?
I'm already going to plant my flag. I think this is where flying was handled the best in the history of this game. This is my poster child, because you could get it before max level. Oh God, I should have prepared more. I want to say it was 3 levels before max, because 2 zones, Storm Peaks and actual Ice Crown, were designed with flying in mind as part of the leveling experience, Taliesin.
Wowza.
Yeah, Ice Crown had like entire armies that you couldn't, there were just too many. If you walked in, you would die. So you had to fly over them. It was like a giant, if you haven't been in a while, fly out there. It's like a big giant like gorge throughout all of Ice Crown. It's just full of undead hordes.
Did people put like huge raids together to try and beat the undead hordes?
Not that I remember.
Because I could see, I'm surprised because I've never really heard anything about that. But if that was to happen today, if Shadowlands had a big gorge in it full of baddies that you couldn't run through, which is why you needed flying to get over them, guaranteed some streamer would put together like 1,000-person raid. and like fill the shard with people and there'd all be blood death knights and guaranteed they'd find a way through.
Eventually,
how impossible was it, really, do you think?
I mean, I definitely got owned a few times just by screwing around with it. Like, but eventually there were dailies to like do things kind of down in that gorge, and there were like pockets where clearly you could land and fight and pull mobs, and I think there was also some terrible jousting dailies down there, if I remember correctly. I remember that. But if I had to pick between the two, I think Storm Peaks did a way better job. Like it was, I think, just there was so much more verticality to it. Ice Crown was weirdly level. Like it has mountains and stuff, but it kind of feels all on the same level. And the gorge, you just kind of avoid the gorge and kind of quest on the outskirts in the mountains. And there's also like this really cool Vrykul town there. But Storm Peaks, like there was so much verticality. You were really moving between mountain ranges. And also there were like, native proto dragons flying around everywhere. So it just seemed like the kind of place that like at its core was like conceived as a place where flying monsters lived and you needed to have one to get around. Yeah. So I really liked it. It just seemed cool to me that for the Wrath of Lich King, the progression was you're on the ground, you're on the ground, you're on the ground as you're leveling up. And then when push comes to shove and you're at the precipice of endgame, it's like, all right, thaw your wings and let's fly. And and it was, to me, I thought it was really cool that they designed 2 of the final zones with flying in mind.
So did you have to be at a specific point in the storyline then as well to be able to unlock flying?
Oh, that I don't remember. Because there was just a flying trainer in Dalaran at Crassus Landing, but I don't remember if there was a quest unlock or if it was just a flying unlock. Like at a level.
And like presumably the vendor just opened up at X level and then you could buy flying and go on to the other zones and things like that.
Yeah, again, this is how I remember it. But
it was just a gold cost essentially, was it? So
yes.
Gold and level cost.
Yes.
Cool.
Exactly. And then Cataclysm, I think, is the great mistake in flying. I think this is the worst flying has been handled. And
yet, okay, so on paper, Cataclysm sounds like it's taking a good approach to flying. Because, the Cataclysms went back and reworked the old world so as to prepare it for flying, right? Because am I right in thinking the Cataclysm was the first time you could fly in the old world? And that in Wrath and in Burning Crusade, the flying was just specific to Northrend and Outland? Or was old world flying enabled before Cataclysm? I think I'm right.
No, it was because they had to remake the world, and that was part of Cataclysm.
Yeah, exactly. So because it just wasn't built for flying.
Like mountains didn't have tops. Exactly, there were holes in the world.
fair enough, like totally fair enough. So Cataclysm was like, you know, we're redesigning the world, we're redesigning it so you can fly around it like you can in the Burning Crusade and Northrend. Like the old world is catching up with the expansions. You can do everything here now that you could do then. Maybe you'll even have some of that air-to-air combat that we promised on the box of Wrath of the Lich King. Who knows?
Oh yeah, right next to the dance studio.
Yeah, totally. And so on paper they've said, okay, so these new zones in Cataclysm, we will design them from the ground up with flying in mind. Like people will be able to fly in these leveling zones the second they set foot in these leveling zones. So let's design levels with that in mind.
Yeah.
Let's also make one of the zones completely underwater. So, you know, screw those guys.
That one was cool. I thought Fashir was really freaking cool. So yeah, this is the thing. Everyone assumes when you say, I don't like Pathfinder, they're like, oh, you just want flying all the time? No, but what about the initial? I'm like, no, I don't, because I lived through it. It was called Cataclysm, and it was silly.
What was so silly about it? I agree with you.
Okay.
What was so silly about it?
All right, let me paint a picture for you, Taliesin. All right, can you do a little in-game role play for me? All right, you're standing in Hyjal. You're on the ground. You're looking at a mob you're about to go kill, all right? How many times have you been in this position in World of Warcraft? You're about to pull a mob for a quest that you need to kill.
Okay.
All right.
I could tell you exactly if you want me to look up the stats, but many.
Okay. You're about to walk up and kill this mob. Suddenly, 23 players descend from the sky at 280% movement speed and instantly explode the mob. They mount up, they fly directly straight out back into the sky, move 10 yards out, drop down on the next mob and kill it. And this is just happening constantly to every mob around you because it's launch day in Cataclysm.
Good time to be a druid.
It is a good time to be a druid. It was just ridiculous. It just like for me, the fantasy of exploring this world and having meaningful combat was just thrown out the window. Because everyone
not so much the meaningful combat, even just exploring the world.
Yeah.
Because for me, you know, when I start flying, with some very notable examples, which are memorable for how rare they are, that's the end of exploring in any given zone once I can fly. Because I don't feel like a part of the geography. I don't feel like I'm exploring the geography. In many ways, I get to know the zones better, because I learn how things connect a bit better, and you know, you get some awesome views and things like that. Makes it much easier for getting screenshots, which is very important to me in my little world. But generally, I'm one of the reasons it feels so good to get into Shadowlands Alpha and be running around everywhere again is the connection that you feel to the zones. And I feel like that's something which is maybe even more important in modern WoW, because the zones are much more tightly designed. You know, there's no Mulgore in modern WoW. To modern WoW's detriment, I think. Like, Vol'dun was as close as we've got to a Mulgore in modern WoW recent times. You know, just a big open space where you feel like there's actually really nothing here. This is like an open plain. And WoW are kind of, the design team seem quite afraid of doing that now. Like, you know, people criticize, and people probably would. Criticize them for being lazy or whatever and not filling a zone with stuff, but just having a big open space can be glorious. But modern WoW doesn't do that. It's very tightly packed. It's very intricately designed. There's lots of winding paths and like nooks and secret like caves and things like that. And exploring that by foot is wonderful, and like they can plan your views much better. So you'll be like running up a hill and suddenly you'll get this incredible like vista that comes into sight. And you know, though that the framing of that geography on that particular path isn't a mistake. Someone's thought about that a lot, and someone wanted you to experience that and have that moment. And so that kind of curation and that kind of level of design is incredibly satisfying going through the Shadowlands zones now as well. And I remember I felt the same in BFA and every expansion I've ever played. And it's always been a bit of a double-edged sword when I did then get flying, which of course makes my gameplay experience so much more convenient and efficient from a point of view of getting things done, but massively less satisfying from playing an RPG. I'm the kind of person that when I play Skyrim, I don't use fast travel. I'm the kind of person that when I started playing WoW, one of the things that literally excited me the most was that if I wanted to have to get somewhere, I had to go there. even if I used like a flight point, I was flown there in real time. And, you know, sometimes it took a very long time to get there. And I remember actually sending an email to my brother and being like, you have to play this game. It's amazing. Like, if I want to get somewhere, it can take me like an hour to get there. And he was like, dude, that sounds like the worst game ever made. And I was like, are you kidding? It's brilliant.
Listen, I like both.
I'm the kind of man that likes playing Euro Truck Simulator. You know,
yeah. Hey, I've enjoyed my time not getting the 16 Classic quite a bit.
Still enjoying not getting to 60 now, I hear.
Oh yeah. It'll happen by the end of 2020. I'll make that call.
Oh really? Oh, well, as long as the lockdown keeps up, I guess. Yeah.
Dude, lockdown means nothing new for me. Day to day hasn't changed one bit. Yeah. I think there's things I like about both quite a bit. But as someone who doesn't, jumping ahead a little bit, but to more talk a little more broadly about just concepts in World of Warcraft, as the game has leaned more and more on world quests and rep grinds, like, I just want flying. I really do. Yeah. Because I don't particularly enjoy those tasks. They wear out their welcome. Usually by week 3 for me. By the 3rd week, I'm done. I don't want to do world quests anymore.
I never once throughout the whole of BFA tired of running around Tiragard Sound.
That,
like, running around Tiragard Sound on foot is still like an incredible experience. And I felt the same about Azuna in Legion. Running around Azuna by foot, one of the most beautiful zones, and it really spoke to me. It really did like a shoreline well, I thought, like as a piece of design. It was brilliant. But yeah, it says a lot about Cataclysm and the fact that flying was enabled from the start, and the zones, you'd have thought it wouldn't have mattered, because like if the devs were coming to it from a point of view of, you know, we're designing these zones with flight in mind, they're designed to be flown around. And then that would kind of show in their design. And yet Cataclysm was the first expansion that I was there for the very launch of. I was at Wrath at the very close to launch, but also, you know, I wasn't ready to step into the Wrath zones then, because I was just starting the game and things like that. So Cataclysm was like the first expansion where I was ready to go when that expansion hit, you know, and I was looking forward to going in there one day and the world being different and all the rest of it. So you'd think that would be a very special time for me in WoW, and yet I feel no connection to those leveling zones at all. Like I feel Cataclysm zones are the least connected I feel to any zones in the game.
I agree. I don't think we should be able to fly from the beginning. I strongly feel that way.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a case for not being able to fly in a new expansion, and the case is just how we deal with that. So how was it dealt with in Mists? It was pretty much back to the Burning Crusade thing of you get to max level and then you buy it, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's how Mists handled it, which I thought was fine.
Except it's worth noting that in Mists, the gold cost was much more negligible than it was in relatively in. But I don't think there was anyone who was like got to max level in Mists and was like, I need a sugar daddy to give me
no,
3/5 of this gold cost, right?
Yeah,
I need to go dungeoning with my rich ass friend, right? It was basically something that everyone could afford.
Yeah, but Wrath and Mists, like, I agree with, because like for Burning Crusade, especially if you'd already, you know, played for BC, like it was so new in BC, it felt like a thing you really needed to work for, you really needed to accomplish. So having it be quite the gate of gold cost felt right to me. Wrath of the Lich King, I already flown. I already had, you know, a small stable of flying mounts. It kind of felt like, well, I have them already. From a role play perspective, I already know how to fly. Like my character is very adept at it. I do like, you know, I like the silly reasons sometimes I come up with, like, it's too cold. Your mount needs to become a customer, like whatever it is. Like I have headcanon for it in Northrend. Okay, cool.
That was cool. I love that you have to get cold weather flying. I thought that was great. I thought it was really good.
I thought that's great.
I enjoyed that.
I actually do. I'm not making a joke. I like that kind of,
no,
you know,
me too.
That silly
too.
RP.
And in Legion, it was like, there be demons in them skies, though.
Yeah.
But the demons, though.
But the demons,
in Draenor, it was like, yo, you've never been here before. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how to fly a flying mount in Draenor, dickhead.
I know you know how to fly in Outland, which is significantly more messed up and dangerous than Draenor, but you gotta.
So Mr. Pandaria, right, was when I started getting into consuming content, online content for World of Warcraft. It's when I actually started like reading guides about how to play my class. It was when I actually started getting into the theory of the game and also like the community around the game as well. And it was at this time during Mr. Pandaria that I, picked up on one of the main complaints about WoW at the time, which might seem hard to believe now with everything that's happened since. But one of the main complaints listed in every list of things that devs regret and that went wrong with WoW was the mere existence of flying. And how, honestly, if we could go back in time and stop flying ever being in the game, that would be like massive. And like, you won't, this sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it was like one of the number one things that people complained about WoW was the mere existence of flying and how the game would be so much better without it. Which might go some way to explain why the devs made the decision with Warlords of Draenor that they did, which was to come out and say, there will not be any flying in this expansion. You will not be able to fly in Draenor because it's alternate Draenor, though. Ain't no flying. I mean, it's full of animals that can fly and that we often ride in the course of the storyline. But you, my stupid little friend, you cannot fly. You will not be allowed. And, as someone who followed WoW criticism and WoW online discourse and stuff, and who wasn't very used to the community at that stage, in my stupid little mind, in my tiny little brain, I thought, oh, wow. The community's going to be really happy about this because, I watch online content and they all say they wish that flying didn't exist and that expansions would be much better without flying. Because then they all say, oh, we missed that thing in Classic, in Vanilla, where you ran around, you had to explore and there was no flying. And, that thing that Garrett was just crying about just now, about all the druids that shout on him from the air when they were flying around killing mobs. And he was running around trying to kill mobs for some fucking reason. And it was a great story, though. We all really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and
it was so good.
I thought, wow, okay, the community's going to be really happy about this. They got what they wanted. Blizz listened, fam. Blizz listened. We got what we wanted.
May I?
And I was pretty ambivalent about the whole thing because I didn't care. And
may I tell you?
That's not how the community felt, Garrett. That's not how they felt at all.
Permission to steal a catchphrase.
Yes.
It was a shit show, obviously.
It was, Garrett. It was. I might steal that for my show. I might start using that.
Yeah. People were mad, dude. I don't think I have a less tapped in memory of community feedback because Warlords was the time where I paid the least amount of attention to the community because I just didn't give a shit. I hated Draenor so much. The expansion as a whole, I didn't care. Like, my passion for the game was so low. I didn't read Reddit. I didn't check forums. I barely listened to podcasts about World of Warcraft. Like, I was just checked out. I was just waiting for my Blood Elf to look not shitty compared to everyone else's player model. That was the only thing that kept me going, was I just wanted to see what my Blood Elf looked like when the new model got added.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that's,
I get you.
Like, I don't mean to kick a dog while it's down in Warlords of Draenor here, but like where I personally was at, like I was just pretty checked out of World of Warcraft. Like I just didn't care. It didn't bother me that flying was gone.
I was like that in Cataclysm, and through the beginning of MOP as well until I came back and never left since. But I mean, I was tapped into the community then, and watching people like Preach and listening to people like The Instance. I don't know if you know The Instance. It's a really good podcast.
Yeah.
It's gone downhill recently, obviously, but like
I really thought it got a lot better recently.
It was a golden age, I'd say. It was a really good. Like, I mean, yeah, but then it was a great podcast, and it was like the topic of conversation every single week was flying. And granted, there were other mitigating circumstances for that. There was literally nothing else to talk about. So that kind of drama and the conversation surrounding flying was kind of by default the main thing, like the main topic, because there was just nothing else. So that probably kind of magnified and enhanced the feelings of bitterness around it. But I remember, I remember listening to that and Starting Zone and Convert to Raid and other podcasts like that, and there was a real sense of a player base just revolting and being incredibly unhappy with this, and like so many of these podcasts were just focused around the unease and despair among the player base for no flying, which I always thought was something that we had been asking for in the community. Obviously, I was wrong. And one of the things that surprised me around the debate, and I have mentioned this on this podcast before, so we won't dwell on it, but one of the things that surprised me about the debate around the lack of flying in Draenor was, and this is something we did hear, in my unscientific opinion, more from the NA side of the community than the EU side of the community, was flying as a consumer right, and flying as something that I, as a consumer of this game, deserve. It was the first time I'd ever heard the word entitled applied to any gamers, because, I was just getting back into gaming and stuff like that. And I don't agree with that as a term, but you can see where it came from in those terms. The idea that, and I remember Instance had interviews with players and stuff on the show, and they were like, look, I bought the game, I pay my subscription, I've been able to fly before, I want to fly now. And I'm the consumer, right? I'm the customer. So do what I say. That's what I want. And Blizz really dug their heels into this, and they were like, no, for the longest time, they were like, no, you can't have flying. Just out of interest, what's your opinion on that, the consumer angle, when it comes to your right to fly? Because we still hear that brought up now in regards to Pathfinder and new expansions.
I really do truly believe, and I'm not trying to dodge here, that could be its own damn episode. Because it's its own.
that is a dodge.
It's a huge balancing act. To me, anything couldn't be true. They can decide to do whatever the hell they want. It's their game. Blizzard is making it. You're not entitled to shit. That's like I don't go over to Dark Souls. Dark Souls, a game I do not like.
I'm thinking of another video game there, Garrett. Well done.
I do not like it.
Even a Blizzard one. I'm really impressed.
I do not like it, but I respect what it is. It's like me going over to Dark Souls and say, I demand this be easier to play. I don't do that. I just choose not to play it. It's not for me. I don't want it. To me, Dark Souls is the type of game that I really respect what it's sending out. It is hard for the sake of being hard. That is the point of Dark Souls. I respect it for that. I don't have the time or the patience in my life right now to dive into that game, so I don't play it, and that's fine, because there's enough people out there who do, and that's why we keep getting Souls games and games inspired by Dark Souls. And I think the same could be true for World of Warcraft and flying, which is a mechanic. It is one portion of this entire experience that we know as World of Warcraft. And so I think if you were to take it out, there's a lot of implications of that. It's all this balance of how long does it take you to do things? How long does it take you to get places? How much do you design the game around making you go places, right? Because we used to have very insular daily hubs. End of Burning Crusade. What was the final zone? It was Quell Danas. You know what you couldn't do there? Fly. It was Burning Crusade. This is the expansion where flying was introduced. But we couldn't fly in Quell Danas. And at no point in my mind, in Quell Danas, and I'm sure if I went back, I could dig up forum posts complaining about it, but at no point on Quell Danas did I think to myself, this is bullshit, I can't fly. It never, not once entered my mind. It just felt like, oh yeah, this is just a design decision. This is how they decided to do it. Also, we're on Old World. It kind of makes sense. I can't fly on Old World anyway, even though it was a new zone that you had to freaking instance into anyway. They totally could have figured it out. But to me, it's all design decisions at the end of the day. So if we went back to more insular daily quest hubs, you don't really need flying because you're mostly doing everything in one area. But in a world with world quests, whether I like it or not, you gotta get around the entire damn world if you're trying to keep up with your world quests every day, right? So in that, I want flying. And the part of the reason that Pathfinder rubs me the wrong way is I get really bored with world quests really quick, and I would like flying to get the damn world quest done, but I have to do the world quest to get the flying.
And having said that, there was nothing like that system in Warlords of Draenor, because there was nothing to do in Warlords of Draenor. So when Blizzard did eventually relent, and just sticking on WoD for the time being, because this is where the modern Pathfinder was, established and created, and we still pretty much follow the rules of Pathfinder now that were introduced into an expansion which was never meant to have flying in it. Okay, and I think it's probably worth, when you're criticizing, when you're critiquing and analyzing Pathfinder as a system, it's worth remembering that it was initially conceptualized as a way of putting in flying into an expansion which was never meant to have flying. Okay, so it was not even a band-aid. It was kind of like an intravenous or something like that. It was something which was inserted into an expansion which was not meant to have flying, to inject flying into that expansion, and trying to find a way of justifying that in a way. So rather than just unlock it one day in patch 6.2, they said, okay, well, here we go. When 6.2 comes along, flying will be enabled in World of Draenor. What do you think about that? And not only that, but you say there's no content in WoD? Well, here's what you have to do to get flying in WoD. Here is, and I pulled it up on Wowhead. Here were the original... because in theory, it sounds like a good idea. It's like you have to get gameplay achievements. Yeah. Because there's guaranteed someone's going to be listening and doesn't know what Pathfinder is. Pathfinder is, instead of just unlocking flying when you hit a certain level and then buying it with gold, you have to complete in-game achievements to unlock flying.
Usually in the form of hitting Revered with many different factions.
Well, on paper, it sounds like a great idea, right? Like, surely, if you were in a board meeting at Blizzard, and, say you were conceptualizing an MMO for the first time, and they were like, okay, how do we unlock flying? Do we just make it a gold cost, or do we put like gameplay challenges in there? Everyone put their hands up and go, well, we'll put gameplay challenges in there because we are game designers and that's better game design, right? And on paper, most people would agree with them. In practice, of course, as we see, lots of people don't. But these were the achievements that you had to complete Draenor Pathfinder. Draenor Explorer. Pretty straightforward. Explore the regions of Draenor. Which, of course, don't forget, wasn't all that straightforward because you couldn't fly. And also, don't forget that in Draenor, there was very much one zone which was entirely Horde, and very much one zone which was entirely Alliance. So, like, if you were Alliance, the hard part of that achievement was exploring Frostfire Ridge. And if you were Horde, the hard part of that achievement was exploring Shadowmoon Valley. You didn't really have much reason to go to those zones if you were from, there weren't world quests and things like that. And there weren't, like, Mythic Plus dungeons to go to the entrances of. And, there was just no reason to go to these places, basically. Mythic dungeons in general didn't come until 6.2 when flying was introduced, so there's no reason to go to these zones. But they know, pretty straightforward and like pretty acceptable, I'd have thought. Loremaster of Draenor, which is complete all the storylines in the different zones. Securing Draenor. What was securing Draenor? It doesn't actually say now. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Securing Draenor. Complete the Draenor bonus objectives listed below. Assault on the Iron Siege Works, Assault on Magnarok, Assault on the Everbloom. So these were kind of like in-game events, which were assaults in different zones, which were a pain in the ass to complete, by the way. Because again, you had to get to these zones, and you couldn't fly. So you had to get there, you had to complete them. You usually needed like the help of other players to do that. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 12 of these. I remember this was one of the hardest parts to complete for my Pathfinder, because we were given these achievements like long before 6.2 went live. Like, so you could be ready for 6.2. Master Treasure Hunter. Discover 100 treasures of Draenor.
Well, thank God for add-ons for that one.
Well, and yeah, don't forget that you couldn't do this. Like, once you discovered a treasure in Draenor, it was gone.
Yes, you had to discover 100 unique treasures.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that was another one that I was kind of scrambling to get done right at the last moment before 6.2 released. And finally, Tanaan Diplomat. Earn revered reputation with all three factions in Tanaan Jungle. Tanaan Jungle was obviously the 6.2 area, so this was something you simply could not complete until 6.2. So you could have everything else finished in time for 6.2. But when 6.2 arrived, you had the Hand of the Prophet, Order of the Awakened, and the Saber Stalkers.
Very analogous to like part 1, part 2 that we had
to get revered with.
Yeah, it was basically part 1, part 2 that we have now. It just wasn't broken up into 2 achievements.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's because the entire meta achievement was only introduced in 6.2. But if it had been like, it's you can there is a 6.1 element to this, and there is a 6.2 element to it, just like there is now. And you got a mount for that when you completed it. You got the Soaring Sky Terror, and you got flying, and it was everything everyone wanted, Garrett, because once you did that, and once you unlocked flying, at last, you were free, finally, in Draenor, to mount up on your flying mount and fly from your garrison headquarters to your mine. And then you could come out of your mine and you could fly from your mine to your herb garden. And then you could fly from your herb garden to like the bit where you burned the crates to get the stuff out of them in your garrison. That bit, what was that called? The salvage yard. And then you could fly back to your like main garrison building again.
Hey, man, I went to like
moving around your garrison took a fraction of the amount of time. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, Gorgrond was great from the air because it meant you never had to land in Gorgrond.
Yeah, it's almost as if
finally, we had the convenience of being able to fly around our garrison, which I think everyone agrees made WoD much better, right?
It's almost as if the expansion was not designed with flying in mind. Almost as if.
And again, Tanaan Jungle, infinitely more interesting and enjoyable before flying. Like you were running around Tanaan Jungle, and the main reason to complete quests and stuff in Tanaan Jungle, which is one of those open areas, that zone in Mists, the Timeless Isle. Mm-hmm. The main reason to be doing Tanaan Jungle was to get flying. That was basically it. There was like a mount reward and stuff like that as well for getting some of these reputations up and stuff. But the main reason to do it was to get flying, and and then there was no reason to do Tanaan Jungle anymore, and that was it. And then you could fly from your garrison. You could fly to the entrance of the raid to Hellfire Peninsula. And that was it. That's all I ever used flying for in WoD, was to fly around my garrison and fly to the entrance of the raid, and that was it. That was the end.
I think you and I have a bit of a difference of opinion, in that I think at a certain point, repeatable content, I'm ready to trivialize it by flying, but I didn't trivialize it. I just once I got flying, I had no reason to do it. It wasn't trivialized. It was surgically removed from the game. That's a very good point. Yeah. So do you agree with me? Would you rather just not have flying, or would you like to have been able to continue your rep grind at an earlier point with like Saber Stalkers, for example, with flying?
I don't see how getting flying made my experience in Draenor any more satisfactory. I don't see how it improved the game. It's nice to be able to fly around there now, obviously, when I'm like leveling up an alt and I go back. And I'm super glad that I have Draenor Pathfinder now that I can.
That was going to be my counter. I like it for alts.
It makes leveling like much easier. But at the time, and it made leveling alts through Draenor at the time easier as well. But alts are always a different conversation. Like from the point of view of my main and the actual story, and a lot of this is probably to do with the fact there wasn't much to do in the outside world in Draenor. Granted, there were no world quests and things like that. But I can't honestly say, I can't look you in the eye, Garrett, and tell you that being able to fly in Draenor improved the expansion for me.
I would agree with you. As now, also, full disclosure, I unlocked Draenor flying after I got flying in Legion.
Still got it before you got to max leveling classic, though, didn't you? So.
Yeah, I did. I personally just checked out of Draenor. It was the longest break I've taken from World of Warcraft. I was just done at a certain point and disinterested. And a large part of that was because for me, a lot of what keeps me going later in the game when I'm kind of bored with other aspects is leveling alts, and it was terrible without flying because I was just done. I didn't want to walk through those zones anymore.
This is definitely another aspect of Pathfinder, which I suspect is a more important aspect to a lot of players, is, you know, that sinking feeling that you must feel if you're coming back to the game and you're leveling through old content, just trying to get to the new content, or if you're just leveling an alt and you get to old content that you don't have a Pathfinder for, that sinking feeling of going, oh, what? I can't fly in this zone. Well, how do I make sure? How can I fly in this zone? And you look at Draenor Pathfinder and it says securing Draenor, and you have to do all these assaults, and you're like, no. And nope. Master's Treasure Hunter, and you're like, no.
Nope.
And Lawmaster Draenor, okay, maybe. And then Tanan Diplomat, and you're like, absolutely no. I can be long gone in this zone by then. And that is granted like something that I think is terrible about Pathfinder.
And
what I would have said is the worst thing about Pathfinder by far, because there's no way that the Pathfinder achievements should have to be completed on old content, in my view. But also a moot point, because that's the thing that's changing in the future. That's probably why we're having this episode today, and why Pathfinder is in our heads, is because Blizzard have announced that won't be the case in Shadowlands.
Yeah,
and Draenor, old Pathfinders won't be a thing.
Draenor flying and Broken Isle flying for Legion, those will be unlocked together at 30 just through gaining a new like flying skill.
Yeah, which I completely agree with in every way. I don't think that Pathfinder should be content that you have to complete on legacy content. In the same way that I don't believe that allied races should be reputations and content that you have to complete on legacy content either. And I believe that the day BFA went live, the reputation requirements for Lightforged Draenei, Lightbound Draenei, and Void Elves and not Maga Orcs, the other ones, High Mountain Tauren and the rest of them. Yeah. Those reputation requirements should have been removed from the game the day that BFA went live.
Yeah.
It's okay having them for Dark Iron Dwarves and for Maga Orcs and for races that were introduced in BFA, because BFA is still current content. But the second that those Legion ones, the second that BFA went live, the rep on those Legion ones should have disappeared. And it's the same with Pathfinder. Like the second we got into BFA, Legion Pathfinder should not have been a thing. And the second we got into Legion, Draenor Pathfinder should not have been a thing.
I agree. On this, we agree.
And on this now, finally, Blizzard agree as well. But the thing they do disagree with you on, Garrett, is the existence of Pathfinder at all. Because we went from Walls of Draenor into Legion, and we were told from the very beginning that Legion will enable flying, and flying will exist in Legion, but it will also follow the Pathfinder model, which, you know, was generally agreed at the time in Draenor to be a pretty good compromise. I think everyone was so relieved to actually get flying in Warlords of Draenor eventually that, there wasn't much criticism of Pathfinder in general. It's generally considered to be, you're playing the game. If you're playing the game, you'll have completed most of these things otherwise anyway. And if you haven't, it's going to take you maximum like an hour or two to go around and just mop up and to finish these things. And then it's just the rep grind and the new zone. And we were so excited to have a new zone in Warlords of Draenor because, like I say, the last major patch was the selfie cam patch. So just the entire idea of Tanan Jungle at all was so exciting that we were just happy to be running around it doing our rep, honestly. And it was cool because it's all Legion-y stuff, and it, that was unexpected at the time.
Yeah, Tanan Jungle's a good zone. It's really well designed.
Fine.
When I enjoyed it a little bit before deciding I was just done with WoW for a while, it was really cool.
So we were told that flying wouldn't come until 7.2 in Legion, but that we could obviously earn our everything that we could do in 7.1 or up to 7.2. So everything we could do in 7.0 and 7.1 we could do. We could get ready for 7.2 and we could have everything completed in time for that, apart from the new stuff that would get introduced in 7.2. So what that meant was there was an element of time gating that was introduced for the first time. They literally flat out and said, it wasn't that you wouldn't be able to get flying until you hit this level or until you hit this gold cap. It was literally, you won't be able to get flying until we release this content in a year and a half. And until then, you are grounded. And this is where a lot of people started to form their negative opinion of Pathfinder. What was your Legion experience with that?
It's the least I've been miffed at Pathfinder. And it's
even less so than in Draenor.
Yeah, because to me, this is where it just gets straight up personal. It's like personal tastes and personal opinion about the quality of an expansion.
Oh, I thought you meant like this is where it gets personal.
No,
Screw you, Blizz.
no. It's really difficult for me to have this conversation in a way that I think is like truly objective. Like this comes down to, I think Legion was an amazing expansion, as I've said before.
Dude, you're a white dude on the internet. Everyone wants to know your opinion.
As I've said before, if I take my Arthas and Lich King fanboy out of it, I think Legion is the best expansion in the history of World of Warcraft. And to me, it was just so good, and I just wanted to keep playing it, that I wasn't really thinking about how much I miss flying, or wasn't really thinking about the reputation grind, which is a sore spot for me, to unlock flying when it eventually came out in 7.2. When 7.2 released, I was pretty much ready. Like for the only time in history of Pathfinder's existence, I was on speed to just get it, because I was just playing the game the way they wanted me to play it, which is at the core my grind with Pathfinder. So it was the least, for me, it was least intrusive because I was just having such a good time with Legion.
Even in 7.2, because we've discussed this before as well, how I believe that 7.2 is the weakest Legion.
I agree. I
also think it's probably the weakest patch in WoW since the start of Legion. I include BFA patches in that.
Yeah, as I've made the joke before, I think modern WoW tends to have its Dirt Island zone in a mid-tier patch. So like I didn't like Mechagon, I didn't like Broken Shore. I didn't think they were particularly good or compelling zones.
So for the sake of completion, let's just read Broken Isles Pathfinder. Part 1, the stuff that you could complete before 7.2, was Broken Isles Explorer, which is a standard thing, just explore all the zones. Much easier in Legion than it was in WoD.
Yep.
Because you could visit every zone. Lore Master of Legion, again, just play through the storyline of each zone. Variety is the spice of life. Account-wide progress on this one, but complete 100 different Legion world quests. Had to complete 100 world quests, Garrett.
Boy, it would have been cool if they stopped there, or 100 world quests were enough to hit Revered for all the required factions and Diplomat.
Yeah. And then you had to earn Broken Isles Diplomat, which was to get to Revered with the 6 different factions that you could earn reputation. Not including the Fisher faction, thank goodness. Not including the Fisher guy on that little island just outside Dalaran, who I'm still not Revered with. But that's fine. And a glorious campaign, complete your class order campaign. So again, like all stuff that you'd expected to have done by the time 7.2 rolled around anyway. So I don't think it was like getting those things actually completed that is the problem with how people think about Legion Pathfinder, and more the fact that there was, for the first time, an element of time gating. Like you could complete these things within a week or two, but you still had to wait like the best part of a year before flying was even unlocked. You know, you were kind of sitting on this achievement for a very long time. And part 2, just open this. Part 2, which came with 7.2 and the Broken Isles itself, was Broken Isles Pathfinder, which was, part 1. And then Explore the Broken Shore, which was exploring 8 different zones of the Broken Shore. 8 different areas, and Legion Fall Commander, which was the tricky one, earn revered status with the armies of the Legion Fall. And here's why 7.2 was so bad, is because the Broken Shore was filled with events and daily quests and hidden treasures and, exciting things going on, and world bosses, and a big spaceship going around dropping mobs you had to kill for nether shards. But essentially, the entire purpose of the Broken Shore and all the activities that happened on the Broken Shore, it was a bit like Tanan Jungle. They were there because you needed to complete them to unlock flying. So, like, you were going around completing world quests to get your Legion Fall, armies of Legion Fall reputation. You were opening treasures because you got reputation for that. You were killing world bosses in the hope that they dropped a little thing that gave you reputation. Like, the main purpose of completing all of these world events and world quests and things was to build up your reputation for flying, essentially. And there was nothing else to do on the Broken Shore because there was one quest line a week, which was one of these activities anyway, that didn't do anything to progress the story. And the raid didn't come out until week 12 or week 11 of 7.2. So there was not the sole purpose for the whole first 11 weeks of 7.2 was to unlock flying. Most people did it in 2 or 3 weeks. And then Legion had the double whammy where after you'd done that, in 7.3, we went to Argus, and you couldn't fucking fly.
I was super okay with that.
It was like the whole purpose of 7.2 was to unlock flying, which you couldn't use in 7.3.
I'm fine with it. It's Argus.
So fuck you, Garrett.
It's Argus. They should set you on fire if you go into the sky.
And here's the thing, right? You shouldn't have been able to fly on Argus, and Argus would have been terrible if you could have flown. And but people went nuts. People went nuts, Garrett. They just unlocked flying. They just played through 7.2, and it was rubbish. No one can fly in Argus now, even flying, and rightfully so. But although the zone where you're actually in space is the one you can't fly, which never made sense to me. But anyway, you're in space, you can't fly. I get it. It's bad. And it makes sense. But you just earned Pathfinder in 7.2, and then they went, oh, well done. You played through maybe the worst patch in modern WoW, and your reward is you got flying. Here's a zone where you can't fly. Fuck you.
Okay, fuck you.
Eat shit.
6.1 is the worst patch in modern WoW, but okay. There's so much there, and I don't want to debate with you being in space and being on a planet, because Argus is a fucking planet.
Fair. It does have gravity. It makes sense, and like the argument in Argus, now. I know. It's like alien. It's hostile territory. There are anti-aircraft guns everywhere. That's like they literally shoot us when we arrive there. You know, I get it. Why you can't fly.
I don't know if you're picking
from a lore perspective. I get it.
I don't know if you're picking up on my overall opinion yet, Taliesin, but it is. You should do what you think is right for your story, for your zone, and for your game on a story, zone, and game case basis. So I'm cool. I'm not saying blanket statement. Just give me flying all the time. We did that. It was in Cataclysm. It was absolutely terrible. And I'm not saying give me flying all the time when I hit max level in new expansion, just let me buy for it. I'd like to not flying in Argus. It made Argus feel awesome. I'm totally down with it. It helped with the fantasy of being on a planet that at its core wanted to kill you.
Yeah.
I really liked it. And so none of that bothered me. And again, kind of going through this, flying to me is a big part of alt friendliness, and also just makes farming and my personal economy of World of Warcraft something that is significantly less arduous as I've spent an insane amount of time with the current expansion.
Yes. And that makes sense. Like the efficiency with which it lets you play the game is invaluable, totally. But that is definitely less satisfying than, for example, how you described the Storm Peaks, where the flying allows you to access other parts of the map and a new part of the story and the game. Like the story is like the flying is serving the story in that instance.
Yes.
Whereas in modern WoW with Pathfinder, there's a sense that flying is serving like just how easy it is to play the game, which is a different reason to have flying. And that is different. And I guess maybe there's a sense that, you know, you're being forced to complete an arduous checklist of tasks. And the only hard bit is the reputation, in fairness. But you're being forced to complete this just to make your gameplay easier. And the sense that maybe it should have been easier to complete world quests in the old world, or, you know, on the Broken Isles. Maybe it should have been easier to complete world quests a little bit before 7.2. Maybe I should have had that ease of use before 7.2. So would you say that Pathfinder would be more acceptable if it happened in 7.1?
I think we get into a pretty murky, you know, what could be very meaty, substantial conversation, because there's so many different ways you could play it. It's all, I see so many things in game design as like a balancing act. And hell, I even agree with Karen in the chat room says not easier, more fun. Like that's another way to look at it.
I don't disagree with that. I don't agree with that because I think we've already established that like when you first start a zone, then it's more fun to be running around.
Yes.
And there's a point where it becomes more fun to fly. But just flying isn't like automatically more fun because like at the beginning it's more fun not to fly. But there is a point when it becomes more fun to fly. So you can't say one is more fun than the other. Like
no, it's subjective.
The context of the timeline is very important.
Yeah.
Like there's a point where flying becomes more fun than running around, but running around was more fun before that. So it's finding that like that balance. Yeah,
we're kind of approaching what for me is like a drum I have beaten many times, which is like for me, to me, it comes down to like the rep grind. It's just something I don't particularly enjoy because I get bored with world quests. I think quicker than apparently an average WoW player. Maybe. I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time like you reading complaints on the forums. So my finger on the pulse of vocal majority, whether they're an actual majority or not, is irrelevant. But for me, something I have brought up time and time again is reputation tabards, because the way I like playing World of Warcraft is 5-stack content. I like tank, healer, 3 DPS. To me, that is at its core of what I enjoy about World of Warcraft. I really enjoy running dungeons. And now, when I run dungeons, ever since Wrath of the Lich King, well, and it was kind of irrelevant for Cataclysm because I could fly from the beginning, I have felt as if I am falling behind by doing what I enjoy in the game, which is tanking dungeons, because that doesn't help me complete Pathfinder. I just stall out my reputation grind because there's no way to grind it through running dungeons. And I'm not serving that up as the correct answer. I want to serve that up as an example of what I see as a balancing act. You know, if you are like me and you think Pathfinder is an arbitrary gate that kind of forces you to play World of Warcraft a way that you don't particularly enjoy, it's you know, that could be a way to relieve it. You know, still have Pathfinder offer optional paths to completing those achievements.
Now, that sounds good to me. But I guess the question I'm asking is, I'd be totally up for that, yeah. But even if you had that alternative path to grinding the reputation, would it still be too late to have Pathfinder introduced in a 0.2 patch? Or could you solve a lot of the angst towards Pathfinder by having it in an earlier patch?
I personally believe it would be okay. Like, I think once
you'd still be happy to have it as a 0.2 thing?
No, I was going the other direction. I personally think it would be okay to have flying earlier.
Okay.
So, like, you know, again, I think there's multiple right answers to this, as I believe is currently is usually the case with discussions around game design. But like, I really like how Lich King handled it because it considered it like accepted flying as something that exists within World of Warcraft and even designed some zones, some leveling zones around it. I think that's really cool. And I think Vajir is actually a really good example of that as well. Forget for a moment, let's look at Vajir in a vacuum, let's forget that it existed in an expansion where you could fly from the very damn beginning. Like the fact that like there's an opening quest to get a seahorse, that it is underwater, that you got like you could swim way faster than you usually could, that you got a seahorse that gave you essentially flying controls. That's something that really speaks to the zone design. It's a zone that has an insane amount of verticality. And I would apply that even now to Nazjatar. That is a zone that actually like changes drastically once you can fly, because it's like this crazy coral reef / elven ruin with a lot of verticality to it. And boy, it's a lot easier to get those damn flying ray assholes when I can fly. There's a lot of them flying around. Like, I think that's really cool. Like, just moving through it feels natural. It feels like a thing I should be able to fly or swim through because it's an underwater damn zone, even if it's magically no longer underwater. So all of these things like pique my interest as someone who loves fantasy. And also, like, I thought were pretty well handled from a game design perspective. Like, I thought that it actually accepted flying rather than thought it was a mistake and was fighting against it the entire time.
Yeah. Do you get the sense that the modern Pathfinder is fighting against the existence of flying?
A little bit, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think looking at it from a game design point of view, like I'm not a game designer. So, you know, I mean, I have come up with ideas on the show that were then put into WoW later on. But you know,
have you? I've never heard you mention that before.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm not a game designer. And but for me, you know, kind of the romance of finding a narrative reason for flying and stuff could so easily have worked with 7.2 and 8.2 as well. I mean, what if you could complete Pathfinder in 7.1? So you could fly around the Broken Isles in 7.1. You could do all your world quests and stuff like that. And what if you needed to be able to fly to get back to the Broken Shore? You know, like they're attacking the Broken Shore like they do at the beginning of 7.2, and all the ships appear. You have that awesome cinematic with Kil'jaeden, and we see Sargeras or his little glowy ball for the first time, and it was so good. And like we're all having a meeting in Dalaran that gets interrupted when all the ships appear and stuff, and we're like, oh no! And then like 7.2 opens with you jump on a griffin and you fly over to the Broken Shore and like repel the initial attack. What if you could only do, like, you couldn't jump on a computer controlled griffin because it just gets shot down. You had to fly in there yourself. And that was how you got to the Broken Shore again. It was like, you had to be able to fly. And to do that, you had to unlock Pathfinder in 7.1. But you had a whole patch to do that, you know? And the only reputations involved were reputations that you could do in 7.0. And things like that. So you could have everything, and it would unlock automatically when 7.2 opened, and it gave you a reason to have flying in the first place, and it connected it to the story so that you could fly over to the Broken Shore and take part in 7.2. And the same in 8.2 as well. What if the only way you could get to Mechagon was to fly on your own mount? Yeah. And like, again, you could unlock it in 8.1 using just 8.1 Pathfinder achievement and just cut out all of the reputation. And what if the reputation that you earned on the Broken Shore and on Mechagon just allowed you to fly faster in those zones? You know? Because I like having a gameplay achievement thing that you have to fill out to unlock flying. I think that's a superior system to gold. Like, I genuinely think it is, because I think it's something, when it comes to golds, some players have an advantage over other players in that. Some players will have the gold already, and no matter what the level of gold is, some players won't have that gold. Like, I think we take for granted, you know, as people that play the game a lot, the difference and the disparity in like how much gold different players have on their characters, you know, and we don't all have sugar daddies that we can ask for the gold, you know, so, and we're not all gold makers ourselves. So, and also there's just, I mean, for goodness sake, can you imagine what would happen if Blizz changed it to gold again now? Because you're talking about the modern WoW community now. If they turn around and they said, good news, everyone, we're taking Pathfinder out of the game, and now it's going back to just how it was in Burning Crusade and Wrath or whatever. You just get to a certain level, and then you can just buy it with gold. Can you imagine the videos that would come out? It'd be like, oh, I've just been reading the WoW news, and surprise, surprise, Blizzard have changed flying in World of Warcraft. It used to be something that you had to complete in-game. You had to play the game. You had to play the game to unlock flying and do things in the game. But guess what they've changed it to now? Oh, what a surprise. You have to buy it with gold. And guess what I can do to get gold in the game? I can buy a WoW token. So all they're trying to do now is they're just trying to sell WoW tokens. That's all they're trying to do. That's all they care about. They've changed this. It used to be, okay, I did complain about Pathfinder quite a lot when they introduced it, but at least you had to complete things in the game. At least they had to complete things. Now, all they want to do, they just want me to buy a WoW token. That's all they want. I mean, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not saying I agree with any of those points, but you know those videos would get made, and you know that would be a conversation in the community.
Well, there's an entire market on outrage. It's an entire style of video.
Yeah, but they do have an influence. They're not called influencers for no reason. And they do impact community perception of things. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, 110%. I see exact words and phrases from the outrage community parroted back to me constantly. But we're not here to talk about that.
No, but I mean, like when Blizzard come up with these systems, they do take the reaction of the community into account, obviously, and that would definitely be like a reaction. And I genuinely think that from a game point of view, not being a game designer, I think having in-game things to do to get unlock flying is a superior system. I like your idea of like those things that you have to do being variable. Like maybe you can do this thing, or maybe you can run dungeons to get that reputation. You know, maybe you can do it through World Quest. I think that's definitely cool. That's really great. And I would definitely accept that as an improvement on the system. I would also make it unlockable, and I would make flying the reason, like the way that you get to the new zone in a 0.2 patch. The other have flying a thing that you unlock in 0.1.
I would like to bring up one more like potential option, because it's just in the back of my mind. I don't think it's as elegant, but like you could also have like, because I like when new zones get added in new patches, and I don't mind having to explore them on foot for a given period of time. You could unlock flying in stages for different zones.
Yeah, that's fair. So you can fly in 0.1 in the zones that you're in 0.1, but then in the new zone you have to earn it again in that zone. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, like
I think that's a very good solution.
Like they could, if we had like stables as a mechanic, like from the get go, like we could have just had like building stables in like each zone. It's like, sorry, I can't fly here. We don't have stables here yet. You know?
Yeah. I agree with you. Like I know that I'm being cast as like the defender of Pathfinder in this conversation, just because you're so vehemently against it. But I'm no like big fan of it. Well, I like some elements of it, and there are other elements which could clearly be improved, I think. And I think we've come up with what feel like pretty solid improvements straight off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. Because like, again, it's kind of when I think we're landing on there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat, which is a terrible terrible idiom. But like I think there's a lot of different avenues that they could take. And really my disappointment just comes from them just seeming to rest on their Pathfinder laurels and just be like, well, this is just what we're doing. And it's just like, why could you please challenge yourself, question yourself? Because it's been more interesting in the past, in my opinion.
Okay, so we've caught up to Shadowlands now, right?
Yep.
I'd like you to put yourself into. I still miss not being able to run around. I still miss not running around Tiragard Sound. By the way, for me, like I actually, when I was obviously pleased when I got flying in BFA, but there was a sadness on that day as well.
Well, there's
a
no
sadness
one
which has not dissipated and which has not left me. A sadness at not having to run around Tiragard Sound anymore, because I think it's one of the most beautiful zones to run around. I absolutely adore it, and I still feel that sadness now. But anyway,
what if I told you you can still run around Tiragard Sound and no one is stopping you?
That's not how World of Warcraft works.
No one is stopping you.
That's not how it works.
It's how it could work for you. You know, if you want to take a stand, Taliesin, literally, quite literally, if you would like to stand.
That ain't how it works, bro. That's not how it works. In the same way that, like, in the same way that, I mean, it sounds from your story in Cataclysm like you were trying to run around everywhere.
I think you missed my point on Cataclysm. What was ridiculous was that it was just Dive Bomb Central. That was absurd.
No, I'm just making fun of you. But you didn't go, oh, this is ridiculous, I'm going to run around everywhere, did you?
No.
Like, you know, you do what is there. And you play the most efficient way. Like, you don't say, oh, I don't like Breath of Sindragosa, therefore I'm going to play as a Frost DK and just not use Breath of Sindragosa.
No, I swapped to Demon Hunter.
Well, exactly. But what I'm saying is you don't just play your class suboptimally. Like, even if there's an ability that you don't enjoy using, you use that ability if it's optimal.
Dude,
and same with fly. If you can fly, you fly.
Don't
like, you're not going to walk anywhere if you can fly.
I started a level 57 Death Knight to run through Revendreth. It's so bad. I hate it so much, Taliesin. It makes me so sad because I love Death Knights and I love their lore and I just want to be a Death Knight, but Princess and Sindragosa is boring.
I also just want to put it out there that I've got nothing against rep grinds in general in WoW, and I think unlocking flying is a good reason to have a rep grind. I think like that's a good reward from it. Like a rep grind is enjoyable a lot of the time based on how good the reward for that rep grind is. Like having a good reward makes the rep grind more enjoyable. And for me, flying is a big reward. I think it would be more enjoyable if I could unlock flying for the zone in a 0.1 patch and then only have to unlock flying in the new zone that I'm going to in 0.2. I think that's a really good point that you've brought up. And I think that would greatly improve my enjoyment. And I think that would be really good. So going into Shadowlands, you are Ian Hazakostis. Hi, Ian. It's nice of you to join us.
I don't have an Ian impression, and I'm not going to try.
my impression is brilliant, but I'm playing the part of Taliesin here. So, what you are Ian? How do you, Ian? It's nice of you to join us here. As you know, I do this show with my friend Garrett.
Thank you for having me. That Garrett guy's a jerk.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great impression you're doing of Garrett there. Actually, you do know him. And as you know, Garrett's been quite upset with Pathfinder in the past, and I know that you have promised to design Pathfinder and flying in Shadowlands in a way that specifically makes my friend Garrett happy. So with that as your criteria, flying designed just to make Garrett happy in Shadowlands, Ian, how will flying work in Shadowlands?
Well, that one's simple. If we're making it just for Garrett, Arthas is now a flying mount.
Oh, Garrett, you think you do, but you don't.
No, I'll tell you exactly how you would make. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. And someone tweeted this at me yesterday, and I need to look it up to give. Oh my God, where was it? Oh my God, you get so many likes on your tweets, Taliesin. You have taken over. You've taken over my Twitter feed.
Twitter accounts.
Yeah, I can't. Okay, I'm sorry. Whoever sent this. Do you know how to make me get a World of Warcraft tattoo on my chest? Because I'm so excited.
What? You don't have one already?
Rep Tabards Torghast.
Ooh.
Just let me throw on a Rep Tabard and grind out my rep in Torghast, and I will just be the most the happiest clam in World of Warcraft.
Well, as you know, I'm a firm believer that they should enable alt leveling in Torghast. So that's just a slight extension of that. And I'm up for that. I'm totally up for that.
Great. Yeah, but if I could just for the love of God, bring back Rep Tabard. I know I'm trying so hard not to serve it up as the correct answer, but like it's something I want so bad. Like if you're asking me like what I want, that's it. I want to like let me go do my group coordinated content and get my rep.
That's the only change you'd make?
I mean, really, I would say stop being afraid of flying and design some of the game around it is my like cheeky, slightly more aggressive take on it. Like I think in Wrath of the Lich King, they had the courage, Taliesin, to design leveling zones and end of leveling zones, but leveling zones nonetheless around flying. And I think that's really cool. I think Nazjatar got close. But again, by the time flying was unlocked, I was more or less done. Like, yeah, I could move on to Exalted, but didn't really need anything from Exalted. Didn't have to have anything from Exalted.
Well, I think Mechagon and Nazjatar suffer the same problem as the Broken Shore in that respect. I think like the main reason for completing like the tasks and the world quests and the objectives in those zones is to get the rep you need to unlock flying.
Yes.
So once you have flying, you are kind of done. You know, there's some meta achievements and things like that where you need to really push it and do some more. But essentially, that like it is the reward of the zone, right? And I would like to see flying not be the reward of the zone. I'd like there to be better rewards in the zone than flying.
Yeah,
and I would like
to me, I think it's more elegant to have it be something that transforms the zone at a certain point in your experience with that zone.
Oh, I completely agree. So when I see like Bastion, and I see like those flying kind of cities and stuff around the edges of Bastion. Now, leveling through those, I have visited most of those like as part of the storyline. But what I would like is for me to not be able to visit some of those until I get flying. And then maybe there are like quests and story quests up there that I can only get to when I get flying, and I can go up there of my own free will. That's when I saw the concept art for Bastion, and I was in there in BlizzCon playing it, and I saw those things at the side. I was like, yes, I would like that to be part of why I want to unlock flying, is I can go up there. And there has to be something for me there. You know, like I remember there was a cave in on the high mountain, and like you could see it from Suramar. There was like a cave, and you couldn't get there. And I used to look at that from the outskirts of Suramar, that cave up on the mountain in Legion. I used to think, I cannot wait until I get flying, because I'm going to fly up there, and I can't wait to see what's in that cave. And when I finally got flying, that was one of the first things I did. And I flew up there. There's nothing in there, Garrett. There's nothing in that cave. There should have been something in that cave. And there should be like stuff I can go to in the zones, which I could see all the time, but just couldn't get to, that flying allows me to get to. And there should be quests, and there should be stuff for me to do.
Yes, that would be very cool. I mean, yeah, if I could just pull a lever and make a thing happen, I would have them just treat flying like Lich King did, because that's how I liked it. I didn't think it was a bad thing. I was at the end of my leveling. I'd already experienced the majority of Northrend on foot. You know, it was beautiful. I enjoyed every second of it, and then off to fly through the Storm Peaks and Ice Crown.
I think any kind of gameplay thing which is unlocked by gold is more complicated these days because of the WoW token. So I feel like the WoW token on balance is definitely a really incredibly good thing. I think the WoW token is one of the best things that WoW's ever introduced, because it allows people to play the game the most to play the game for free. And I think that's fantastic. And it also single-handedly wiped out the gold industry as well, the third-party gold industry, which means that people don't get their accounts hacked so much, and they don't get ripped off and don't have their bank accounts cleared out, which I also think is really good.
Yeah, like my damn Nintendo account last week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got hit. I got hit.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Fortnite came for me.
That sucks. I managed to get I don't keep my details on there, so I have to fill in my card details every time I go on. And I remember feeling pretty smug about that when that news came out from Nintendo last week.
I gotta say, Nintendo's customer service, amazing.
Oh, awesome! Amazing. That surprises me, but it's very good to hear.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I think the WoW token is awesome, but there are some like traditional parts of the game that I think it does render a bit problematic. I think one of those things is bind on equip max level items on the auction house. I don't think they should be a thing anymore, because the fact that I can buy a WoW token and get the gold I need to buy some of the best gear in the game from the auction house with gold, that's pay to win to me. And I actually think that's the biggest problem that WoW has right now that it needs to solve. I think there is right now a pay to win element in WoW, which I disapprove of strongly and I don't like. And it's because of the WoW token. And I don't think max level bind on equip items should drop in raids. I just don't think it's something you should buy with gold because of the WoW token. Like before the WoW token, it was absolutely fine that happened. But now that you can directly transfer your money, real world money, to gold, I don't think that should happen in the game anymore. And I think stuff like buying flying with gold, even if it was for you a negligible amount, guaranteed some people are going to buy WoW tokens so they can afford that gold. And that is problematic. Like it just is. Like the idea that Blizzard could even be seen to be encouraging people to spend real world money on unlocking things like flying is problematic to me and something that we should avoid, I think. And I think the WoW token, like the good parts of it, far outweigh those bad parts, but we should be aware of those bad and those problematic parts that the WoW token introduces and avoid them if possible. And I think that unlocking with flying with gold would be a problem that we should avoid. In my mind, that's just my opinion.
I'm ready to tie a bow on my thoughts, and in a way have a counterpoint to that, because I don't disagree with you, and I will say I think buying gear, especially Peasant Slot or anything close to it, on bind on equip gear is I think that's a much bigger problem than potentially being able to buy flying, and that being contributing to the thought of pay to win. So kind of in closing, like for me, I think if we lived in a world where we went more back to the Wrath of Lich King side of things, why even have a cost in the first place? Just have it be a point in the story, part of the questing. Like we've already unlocked flying. It's something that we've done before. If you've been playing World of Warcraft, if you've leveled up, it's not, to me, I don't think flying is all that special. What I think it could be made special by designing around it, making it part of again, coming back to Wrath of Lich King, of the end of leveling experience. So I think there's a consideration there, that why even gate flying at all beyond just leveling up. On the other side of that coin, I wouldn't mind if they say, we really want you to get flying a little later, if they offer me alternative paths to that unlock. So like I'm okay with either reality. You can probably tell which one I would prefer, but I like respect the desire of the designers to want to keep us on the ground and want to keep us, you know, fighting for our lives a little bit more, or having to actually move through mobs for a little bit longer. Like I understand where that's coming from, and
just getting to know and appreciate the terrain as well. Like that's the thing. I'd be sad if I could unlock flying in a 0.0 patch. Like even if I had played through all the storyline, and even if I had gone through the zone storylines, completed Lawmaster and stuff like that, I'd be sad if I could fly around in a 0.0, because like I get a lot of satisfaction in 0.0 and 0.1 for that matter, but still, of running around and getting to know those zones after I've completed the zone storylines there. Like world quests and world bosses and things are a great way of making that happen. And like getting to know Azuna and getting to know my favorite paths in Azuna and like my favorite kind of archaeology spots and stuff. Even haven't done any of that in BFA, but like, there were archaeology spots that I really loved in Legion, that I enjoyed running to, and I enjoyed the parts of the terrain that I'd run through to get there and things like that. And I'd have been very sad if I'd been able to fly in a 0.0. So I don't want it to be something that happens, you know, that early. But I agree. I think I agree with you and the majority of the player base. I wouldn't mind seeing it happen earlier and as a natural progression of the story. I guess that would mean not introducing a new rep to grind in a 0.2 patch that let you unlock flying for everywhere else as well. It never made any sense to me that I needed to grind rep with people in Nazjatar and Mechagon so that I could fly in Drustvar. That makes zero sense to me, like from a lore perspective. Like in Legion, it made a bit more sense, you know, because the Legion are everywhere, whatever. But in BFA, it makes no sense to me at all. So yeah, I could quite happily have it that you unlock flying for the main zones that you've already leveled through in a 0.1 patch. And then when the 0.2 extra zones arrive, you may have to unlock flying for those separately, but you know, it's not something that is affecting you in the game that you've already played. I think that's an elegant solution. I like it. But of course, there's the added element in Shadowlands that those zones are so much more compact. Like they don't connect to each other at all. Like there's literally, you literally teleport from one zone to the other. There's no flying over a border into a new zone. There's no flying over a hill to get from Drustvar into like a Storm Song or something like that. There's no way of doing that.
Yes.
I mean, pretty much like in the alpha, you arrive by like Oribos is your central hub, and it's also essentially how you get to each zone. Like you go to every zone via Oribos at the moment, I think.
It would have been very cool to have borders where the different forms of the afterlife were crossing over into one another, and that kind of disappoints me a little. I
mean, that is kind of happening in a lot of the storyline in Shadowlands, but it doesn't seem like it's something that you as a player will be able to kind of take part in.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about unlocking different parts of zones by flying. Every single one of those zones is a floating mass, which means it's super easy to add other floating masses next to them. Or, how's this?
I like the thought, real quick, I want to pause. I like the thought that someone on the WoW team goes, "Oh, you think it's easy?"
Yeah. I guess so, yeah. But how's this? And I don't think this is going to happen because I think we'd have discovered it in the files already. But you know Bastion, right? It's just this floating thing. And like you've been playing through it in 0.0 and 0.1. And then you unlock flying in 0.2 or whatever. And suddenly you can fly all around it. And suddenly you think, I wonder what's underneath. And what if you just fly round and underneath, and there's like a whole new zone there?
They could do that for every damn zone, though. There'd be the expectation for like every zone.
Under Bastion. What if that's like part of the storyline? It turns out that one of the problems with the Shadowlands is that every zone has an underzone, and it's like a mirror or something, but it's like an evil version or whatever.
That was something I thought was going to be played with more in Outland, and really wasn't. And really wasn't. Although what was cool was like Netherdrake Isle, like that was cool. Like somebody had to fly out to go do dailies. Like that was pretty novel at the time. I think there was it was like an ogre ridge in Blade's Edge Mountain too, where you had to like fly up to do some dailies. That was cool at the time, and I had never seen anything like that. That was like gated by flying. So that it gave you that fantasy of, ooh, I'm somewhere where I couldn't be otherwise.
But I would like, and I've said this in multiple videos before, but I would like flying to unlock parts of the game for me rather than playing parts of the game to unlock flying. I would rather like flying being the reason I find new parts of the game rather than needing a new part of the game to unlock flying in bits that I've already played. And like the idea of like just flying off of Bastion and just going underneath it and there being like just another level underneath, you know, not like an underground cave network because no one likes those, but like, you know, just an actual kind of more fields like you're in Bastion. You know, there's beautiful wheat fields, but they're all red or something. I don't know. And like, you know, it's like an evil Bastion or something, or maybe like a kind of like, you know, the kind of banished Bastion people or something like that. A sad Bastion rather than evil Bastion, maybe.
Emo Bastion.
You know, and yeah, totally. You can have that in every zone if you wanted, and it doesn't have to be as big as the original zone. It just needs to be like an underhang or something, and with some more questing and stuff in. That would be awesome. How cool would that be? And you'd be like, it's nice having flying, isn't it? That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Like those kind of, yeah. It's a tall order for art direction. You know, like we've already got zones in Shadowlands that are essentially the antithesis to Bastion, but at the same time, in a world where we don't have to make these things happen, it sure would be cool. It sure would be cool. Yeah. So,
or maybe we've learned that the jailer has like secretly, you know, sent his troops and they're all hiding underneath the different zones, and that's one of the ways they're getting the anima and stuff like that. So it becomes a new place where you can world quest and stuff like that, and you know, it's all more people down there.
Maybe that's where he's storing all of his body wax, because there's not a single hair on that dude's body.
Glad you noticed that.
Yeah, this is like clearly a swimmer.
He's the anti-furry. Yeah. He's
the opposite of a Pandaren.
I mean, he kind of is anyway, but yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, I think this is I think we've kind of reached the end. I think this is a good place that I need to kind of wrap up the Pathfinder talk. Yeah. But I am surprised how much we found common ground here. I thought this was going to be a much more contentious discussion.
I think you brought up some really, really salient points, which have kind of like helped me explore my own feelings.
I'm glad that was such a surprise for you.
Both about flying and my own sexuality.
Got all hot and bothered by that Arthas mount suggestion, didn't you? I know you want it, Taliesin. Don't lie. Well, folks, if you want to write in, let us know what you think. We'll probably, maybe we'll crack that inbox open next week. Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe next episode will be a mailbag episode.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while. It's been a while. Go right in,
Josh.
Go right in. wowkillercast@gmail.com. You can write in, send us a note, let us know what you're thinking. You got some questions, and it doesn't have to be just about this topic. If there's something you want us to talk about that you think would be a good, like, solid 20-minute conversation. It doesn't take much with the two of us. Write in, wowkillercast@gmail.com. Also, a big thanks to Andrew Allen for our intro and outro music. You can go find his awesome work over at andrewallenmusic.com. Dude's been getting back into WoW super hardcore. Allen. Andrew, you asked me where to go play Alliance because you heard I was flirting with Alliance again. I told you I'm expecting to see you very, very soon. I rolled a freaking Night Elf Demon Hunter this week. I don't even know why. I just wanted to abuse the I already have a max level Horde Demon Hunter. I don't know why I'm doing this, Taliesin.
Because they're cool.
They are cool. They're so emo. They're so freaking emo.
Do you have it on the same server as your other Demon Hunter? Did you transfer it or?
No. I have it over where I'm kind of playing with my Alliance. I've been playing. I'd like to go visit my buddy Shieldwald from the Starting Zone podcast. You know, we go hang sometimes over on the on my original home of the Alliance. So, anyways, before we go, Taliesin, if folks are somehow unaware of where they can consume your wonderful, extremely popular, just delightful World of Warcraft content, where can people find you?
Oh, World of Warcraft content.
Did you want me to keep going?
I was just wondering what the delightful thing was going to be that they wanted to
I thought you wanted me to keep lathering on the compliments.
Oh, no.
You were like, go on.
I was just wondering. I'm glad it was World of Warcraft content in the end. Yeah, if you want to check out more of me, and more importantly, the other half of the channel, who's the more talented one, Evitel, then you can find Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube, and also on Twitch, and also on Twitter. But that's enough about me. What about you, Garrett?
Well, you can find me at Garrett Art on Twitter, where you can, find weird musings about things like I really like talking on social media about things I don't do podcasts about for some reason. So lately you'll find me talking about how I'm building a sim racing rig out of 2x4s because they're very expensive, Taliesin, and I am very bored on weekends. I like getting out of the house and I can't. So I've started sim racing on weekends because I want something new in my life. So
sounds cool.
Yeah,
I won't be doing that.
There I go. I've also been, I've done something very, very out of the blue for me. I've been doing YouTube videos. I've been doing a series of shorts on how to up your working remote game. Like if you're working remotely right now, which many of us are, you've got questions about upping the sound quality or just where the hell to even check to make sure your stuff is working. Or maybe there's a coworker who you spend the first 10 to 15 minutes of every single meeting helping them troubleshoot their tech. I can help you with that. And the most recent one, I sent up a little bit.ly for you. Go to bit.ly/workingremote3. You'll see my most recent episode, which is a checklist. Things you should check before you get on Zoom or Discord or Skype next time. This also has a lot of crossover with if you want to get into podcasting. Because it turns out, same tech. So go check that out. Everything else is at amove.tv. Go check it out. Lots of Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm content. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And until the next WoW Killer, good luck and have fun.
I can't wait.
This is like straight up a WoW NPC. It sounds like something they should say when you say goodbye, like a goodbye line. I can't wait. That'd be fantastic.
If I ever get finally added to the game, I'd like my NPCs like farewell to be, don't be a twat. Like when you click on me, I'll be like, hello, what do you want? But when you walk away from me, I'm like, don't be a twat.
I want to be a blood elf with really nice hair that just says something like, that just compliments your hairdo. I just want to be a blood elf that just says, I love your hair. Like, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Whether I'm a bartender, whether I'm a barber, whatever.
I think that would be splendid, and I would appreciate it.
Yeah, and let me sell hair gel. I would love that. This gives you a ridiculous updo that's not an option from the barber. It only lasts for 5 minutes. Let's.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the show.
Archite Curse highlighted a message. I wouldn't mind earlier flying if they made the skies more dangerous. Like it might be better in this area to stay on the ground. Like 8.3, but there's real
I remember the shit show that accompanied the Great Worm from Beyond.
Yeah, it ended up not being nearly that bad, though.
I know, but I mean, that's something that doesn't even really affect you, and people still hate that.
People are stupid.
That's definitely the attitude that designers should take.
Can you tell that I've been podcasting for 10 years?
I actually think they should. I think they should take that attitude more often. I'd like to be I bet they do. I bet genuinely, if we were allowed to watch meetings in Blizzard, or indeed any video game design developer, half the meetings would be like, should we do this? Because people are going to hate this. And like someone will say, yeah, but people are fucking idiots.
On Angry Chicken, Celestalon likes to hang out in our live chat, especially recently with the lockdown. So Celestalon's been hanging in our chat for Angry Chicken like the last 3 weeks. And last week I said something, I don't remember what the context was, but I said something to the course of, because Celestalon said something, I'm like, and on the show, I'm like, well, I don't work for Blizzard, so I can ignore the morons on Reddit. I don't have to read that if I don't want to. And Celestalon replies with, oh, you think I don't ignore people? I was like, oh, that's great. That's great. And
I like Celestion a lot.
Yeah, I heard Celestalon very
good
much
people.
Is my brand of humor. Like the good dude, good people, that's Celestalon. All right, folks. Thank you so much for hanging. You streaming after this?
Probably not. I want to finish a script actually. So
well, you can
I wouldn't hang about. I think Wednesday now I'm going to maybe stop trying to fit the stream around WoW Killer and just focus on WoW Killer and some writing and things like that.
Cool. Well, you can not find Taliesin after this, but you should still follow Taliesin and Evitel on Twitch.
Maybe if because I think hopefully that means I'll be clear to stream tomorrow if there's a new alpha build or something like that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
but thank you so much for joining us on this show, everyone.
Have a good one, everyone.